Yo everybody, what's going on? My name is PBM or Polar Bear Michael, and surprise, surprise, I got a new YouTube video and it's patch notes. Let's go. Everyone's always really excited for the patch notes. I know you guys really love these. This is for patch 4.16. That'll be coming out tomorrow, which is Tuesday, or if you are a console player, in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. I think it's normally a week after. A quick little update before we get into it. A lot of people have been asking me to update my support build guide. That will be coming hopefully within the next week. I want to get it done by the weekend. Worst case scenario, it will be out by the middle of next week, so around, Wednesday next week. But the goal is to get it out this weekend. I may even get it out in the next couple days, so eventually I'll drop that. It just depends how much editing I have to do and how long it is, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, getting into the patch notes. New skins, there's, obviously it's Smite, there's always good skins. The Bacchus one, the Grizzly Bear Bacchus is really cool. There's a cool Shablanque skin, blah, blah, blah. RDO Mastery skins, for those of you who have her, Legendary or Diamond or whatever. New emotes, that's pretty cool. Connor's Cure event, this is actually a charitable bundle, so if you, buy this, the proceeds go $1 per each purchase to Connor's Cure. So that's really cool. You gotta love it when you're contributing to charity. That's just a great feeling, and obviously you get something out of it in Smite as well. So I would highly recommend that you guys buy this. Really cool. Excuse me, guys. Project Olympus in-game voice chat is a thing here. So a lot of people have been asking for this. If you are newer to Smite, back in, I'd say Season 1 and Season 2, mainly Season 2, which is when I started playing Ranked a lot and kind of getting into the competitive side of the game, whenever you would queue Ranked, you would have like a integrated kind of curse client voice chat. So you would have this curse overlay in your Smite, and you would basically just click like join team or whatever, and it would put you in a curse call with like your 4 other teammates in Ranked. So people would try really hard, you would be able to coordinate stuff. A lot of people liked, I know that when I was kind of coming up, whenever I would get into a game with like Lassus or whoever that was queuing back at the time, you would get into a call with them and you'd get to hang out, and that was a really cool feeling. So they're trying to resurrect that. Whether it will actually work or not, I don't know, but it is definitely cool to give players this option. The Learn tab glossary, they're basically, updating the information that you get from tutorial type stuff, so that's all very cool. Gameplay. Fire Giant will no longer spawn lava pools underneath pets. In most cases, this doesn't really matter. The one where I can think of it really being a big deal is if you're Bastet, and normally a play that people will do as Bastet is they'll like use their cats on Gold Fury to try to burn it really quickly. And when you did that on fire, it didn't feel as good because you would just spawn lava pools under them, and like they could also get damaged by the knockup, and they would just lose a lot of DPS, and they just wouldn't really do that much. Now that they won't get like almost insta-killed by the lava pools, and also if you're a melee character on that team with the Bastet, if you're a warrior or whatever, and you're auto-attacking Fire Giant, you could get really messed up. Like if the lava pools spawn and then somebody CCs you, right as that happens, you're basically just insta-dead if you're standing next to those cats. So it doesn't seem like a big change, and in most cases it won't be, but in a lot of scenarios this will help out some gods, and it just is a nice quality of life change. Duel gets another good change. Increase the amount of bans while drafting from 6 to 8, so each person gets an additional ban. If you play Duel a lot, especially at a high level, you'll notice that there are a lot of very, very OP gods that you cannot let through, and I think there's like 5 or 6 that are just like near impossible to beat if the other person plays them really well, and I'm talking at like a really, really, really high level. And if you let those through, then you basically lose, and the other person can just purposely let them through because they don't have to ban the OP gods. Moving on, I'm just checking this miscellaneous and bug fixes. I don't think there's anything too big here. Basically, keyword pet has been added to this stuff to go in line with the Fire Giant change. Not really a big deal. Same with Wukong. There actually might be some weird interactions that come out of this because Wukong historically had a few like unique interactions compared to a lot of other, I guess, like minion or pet mechanics, so it'll be interesting to see how many of those change. Moving down, items, balance, Sunder. Thunder hasn't really seen a lot of play, especially ever since everyone threw a big fit about it. I'd say earlier on in the summer split, so about, 3 months ago now, or 4 months ago, and they've decreased the cooldown from 160 to 140. Remember that this version of Sunder is, I believe, 15% of the target's like overall health or something, so you can't get kills with it. You can only lower their health, and then you kind of combo them. And then it's the same thing on the upgrade, except then you actually get the damage increase of them. So overall, Sunder hasn't been that favorable of an item. People haven't really been buying it that much. The decreased cooldown does help it a lot. You might see it come back a little bit more. You won't see it become meta, that's for sure. And then if you're a god that everyone's gonna think I'm messing around because of the whole, like, Blink and Sunder, haha. But on the real, if you're a god that uses Blink very well, if you're like a Ymir or you're a Geb or you're Sylvanas or blah blah blah, and you can use Blink, and you have like a Relic dagger, and you need a second Relic, and for some reason you don't want to go Heavenly or Shell, then you could go Sunder, and it will be a very good option, and it'll still do its job. It'll feel fine to play with, so you can always do stuff like that. Heavenly Wings decrease the movement speed buff from 40 to 30%. This applies to both of the normal version and the upgrade. Overall, Heavenly Wings probably still, in my opinion, the best relic in the game, from a support perspective, I mean. So you're still going to see probably at least one of these per team in every competitive level game. It's just, I mean, just the slow immunity is so good. That's why it's been picked up for basically years, ever since Heavenly, or as long as Heavenly has the slow immunity throughout the whole thing, it'll be picked up. And then on top of that, you can get the Fatalis effect if you upgrade it. And the movement speed is very good for disengaging or for engaging. It's just a very flexible relic, and it does a lot of things all in one. So, still very good. I like that they're toning it down a little bit. Same thing with Magic Shell. A lot of people have been very annoyed by this item. I actually don't think that it is that OP. It is definitely very good, but they're just going to tweak it a little bit. Most people are annoyed because it feels like you're just giving like a mini Geb shield to everybody, and it doesn't feel that skillful to play with or against. It doesn't feel like there's a ton of counterplay to it, and I can understand that. So to kind of address that, the cooldown has been increased by 10 seconds on both ranks, and then on both of them, the health shield scaling per level has gone from 15 to 12. So obviously 20 levels in the game times 3 is 60, so it in total, at level 20, it loses 60 health. Really not that big of a deal. I mean, 60 health at level 20 is like a Guardian's auto attack. Like a support, like full defense Guardian's auto attack. It's not really that much health at all. But when you're giving that to 5 people on your team or 4 people on your team, then overall, that 60 health becomes 300 less health, right? And then if you have two shells that you're putting on top of each other, right, like a Soul Laner and a Guardian has a shell, then you go from a 60 health nerf to a 120 health nerf, and then the same thing, if you multiply that by 5, basically everybody will lose a lot more health. So on a single target, if you're only shelling like your AD carry to keep them alive, then you're not really going to feel this change that much. If you are shelling your entire team and you're trying to stack shells and use one after another, then it's going to feel a lot worse. You're not going to do that as much. And I think that was really the main benefit of this nerf. You're still going to see a shell a lot. In my opinion, still, top 2 support relics along with Heavenly Wings. So overall, still pretty good. And I like that they're adjusting it. Shaman's Ring, another item that's getting adjusted. It was kind of in a weird spot. Not many people were buying it, especially from what I saw in the scrims. It seemed like a very awkward item. Now the cost has gone up for 100 gold, and the magical power has gone up 20. Obviously, a 100 gold increase for 20 magical power is very, very worth it. So it puts the item in the spot where you don't really have to rely on activating the passive that much. You get a lot of base power from the item, and then you get the movement speed. It maybe makes it a little bit more attractive, but overall it's still weird where you would fit this into your build as a mage, because you need Pen and you need Rod of Tahuti, and the Shaman's Ring is obviously neither of those. So probably still won't see that much play, but a little bit of a buff. Telekind's Ring decreased the cost from 27 to 2400, should now stack its passive from damage over time dot effects, and update the description to clarify this effect only stacks on gods. I don't know if that makes this item that good. Obviously 2400, a 300 gold decrease is a very big deal. I haven't really seen anyone build Telekind's Ring in any situation, so I really have no idea how good the item is or how good it becomes. You're just going to have to play with it and mess with it, and then you can kind of check it out. Dynasty Plate Helm is a little bit of an odd buff in my opinion. A lot of people complained about this item throughout Season 3 because you would just get this on a mage and you would have so much flat pen and you would be so hard to kill by warriors and assassins, and it felt really bad to play against, so they have buffed the physical protections from 25 to 35. This also is a buff to guardians in the solo and jungle roles because they would buy this item quite frequently. I think this is a really dangerous buff. I'm not a fan of the item in general because it's just so cost efficient and it gives you so many good base stats. I would rather see it not get buffed, but now that it has been buffed, it's really hard to tell whether it'll come back and see play. The one thing I could say about it in the mid lane is that since your level 1 clear is so important, you normally would not start this item. You would go, you know, Book of Thoth 2 or something like that, and if you're going that type of build, then fitting a Dynasty Plate Helm into your build feels very awkward, so maybe you won't get that much. But in general, I would just prefer Bruiser hybrid type items to not that buff. God Balance RTO. To be honest, I don't really understand why RTO is getting that nerfed lately. I do understand that she maybe is doing well in casuals, but from what I've tested with her and from what I've played, she actually doesn't seem all that OP, but she keeps getting nerfed, and if she gets nerfed again, she might not be in a great spot. So decrease the magical power scaling from 35 to 30%, so a 10% overall scaling. Decrease in the base damage, 20 damage per rank is what you're seeing because this ability hits twice. Life tap decreases slow per stack from 20% to 10%. This is actually a very good change, and I like this one because it makes it so that when you're stacking that slow, it doesn't basically root you before it actually roots you, and it feels a lot better to play against, and you can maybe juke it a little bit easier. That was a good change for sure. And then decrease the self-healing from 15 to 35 to 10 to 30 per hit. I don't think that matters that much. I mean, that's basically a 25 healing decrease at all ranks, not really that much health at all. So RDO keeps getting tweaked a little bit. I don't know how good she is right now. She seems to be better as a soul laner than a support, so I'll have to keep track. She's actually available in ranked on this patch, and now that she's been nerfed a couple times, I'm really not sure how good she'll be. And like I said, if she continues getting nerfed, if any of her CC gets nerfed again, then she might not be in a great spot. But overall, her kit is really cool, and I guess she's just overperforming in casuals way too much. So there you go. Obviously, I'm biased. I'd like Guardians to not get nerfed. Time Rift decreased the magical power scaling from 85 to 80%, so a little bit of a scaling nerf for Chronos, as well as Accelerate decreased the section 4 basic attack damage buff from 45 to 35%. This is the one that you'd be proccing all the time, and 10% less basic attack damage buff is very good. So basically, nerfing Chronos is scaling just a little bit because his new passive that they put in a couple patches ago obviously gives him a bunch of free magical power, and he was taking way too big advantage of that, and he was overperforming. So there you go with Chronos. The Colin Barb Spear increased healing reduction from 40 to 50%. This just puts it in line with all the other updates of healing reduction, you know, Sobek 3, Bacchus burp, and all that stuff. So there you go. Khepri, this is actually a really big change, or has potential to be a really big change. Adjusted the ability's timing to allow the target to immediately receive Scarab's Blessing. So for any Guardian player, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I would say you would alt a target, and it would show your character doing the animation, and it would show the light, like the light kind of beam down and go on them, and the alt go on them, and then they would die, and the full cast wouldn't go off, and then it would sometimes go on cooldown, and sometimes it just wouldn't go on cooldown. It wouldn't give them the alt, even though you went through the entire casting animation. That will now no longer happen, so that is a huge deal. You can Khepri alt targets that are like 1 health way more reliably, and it helps Khepri a lot. His ult was by far kind of the hardest thing in his kit to really make work, because in theory you want to save it for the last second so the enemy team can't play around it, but in practice you couldn't do that because it would sometimes just bug out and you would revive nobody, and then it would completely ruin your team fight. So really good change to Khepri. I love that a lot. Skadi nerfs. Thank God the Skadi is getting nerfed. She probably needs more after this, but decrease physical power scaling from her on her ice from 60 to 50%, and then decrease the bonus movement speed from 40% flat to 20 to 40%. So until you get this ranked up, Skadi won't be a freaking race car the entire game. So good changes to Skadi. This hurts her survivability a lot in the early game, so you can gank her easier, you can go on her in early team fights a little quicker. You might actually see people adapt to this change and start maxing the 3 on Skadi. I know I've seen Pro Hunter players mess with that in the past, so keep an eye out for that. Susano increased his movement speed from 365 to 370. Not a huge change, it's just adjusting his mobility because his old passive was taken away. And then Wind Siphon decreased the cooldown from 18 to 16 seconds. Again, not a huge change, just quality of life changes for Susano, but I kind of hate that this god gets buffed because he is really play against. And that is the end of the patch notes, everybody. Overall, just small tweaks here and there. A few things I don't really like. Dynasty Plate Helm probably is one of them. And that's about it. Obviously, make sure to get some gems and buy the Connor's Cure event bundle, or I guess the Dropkick bundle, and go ahead and contribute to the charity, and that would be sick. That is it for me, ladies and gents. I'll get my support build guide update. I don't know why I said Smite there, but I'll get the support build guide update out within the next few days, hopefully. And until then, I'll see you next time. Peace out.